The scream tore through the night like glass shattering, and Emily said, "Why would you do this to me, Sarah?" The glow of her phone burned against her pale face as the words sank in. Sarah's messages scrolled endlessly, each one a dagger she hadn't seen coming. Emily's heart pounded, her breath uneven, as she stumbled across the hidden chat thread, where her best friend betrayed her with cruel jokes and mocking secrets. The sound of her trust breaking was louder than the storm outside. Lightning flashed and she whispered, "We were supposed to be sisters." The screen reflected her wide, tear-filled eyes, while Sarah's smiling photos stared back like ghosts of a friendship that no longer existed. The betrayal was not whispered in shadows but shouted in pixels, and in that moment, the world tilted into something darker. Emily sat frozen, staring at the cruel words like they were written in fire, and she whispered, "This can't be real." The storm's roar outside blended with the storm inside her chest. The messages painted a picture of Sarah mocking her kindness, twisting their secrets into jokes shared with strangers. Every memory of laughter now felt poisoned, every promise broken. She recalled Sarah saying once, "We'll never betray each other," and the echo of that lie cut deeper than the truth she held now. The room felt smaller, suffocating, as the betrayal pressed against her like a physical weight. Emily wanted to scream, but the silence in the room answered louder. Her hands trembled, and the phone screen dimmed, leaving her in shadows, but the scars of the words burned into her mind, refusing to fade. Her breath rattled as she whispered, "She laughed at me behind my back," the truth sinking heavier than the thunder rolling above. Every photo of Sarah in her room mocked her now, each smile a mask hiding venom. She remembered nights of whispered secrets under blankets, when Sarah said, "We're unbreakable." Now, Emily realized those words were fragile glass, already shattered. The betrayal was not distant. It was alive in every cruel line written in that chat. She felt as though Sarah had reached through the screen to tear her open. Emily's chest tightened, her throat raw from words she could not speak aloud. The warmth of friendship had turned to ice, and in that silence, she felt abandoned by the one person she thought would never leave. Emily's phone buzzed again, the cruel sound cutting through her haze. Another message appeared, this time with Sarah's photo attached, laughing beside someone Emily didn't know. "She's living her truth without me," Emily muttered bitterly. Betrayal did not just stab, it lingered, twisting deeper with every vibration of her phone. She had no defense, no shield, only the echo of words she thought were sacred. Her eyes blurred and she whispered, "I loved her more than anyone." The storm outside rattled the glass, but the storm inside her tore louder, shredding the illusion of loyalty she clung to for years. The screen dimmed again, but her mind replayed Sarah's laughter on repeat, an unending mockery that hollowed her from within. Emily dropped the phone onto the sheets, the sound sharp as glass breaking, and she whispered, "It's over." Her chest heaved with ragged breaths, each one clawing against the pain in her ribs. The silence after the drop was deafening, filled only by the storm outside. Her hands pressed against her face, as if she could hide from the truth carved into her mind. Memories of Sarah's embrace, her laughter, her promises, all collapsed into ash. Emily said, "She killed us with a smile," her voice cracked but resolute. In that moment, the friendship that once defined her felt like a ghost, haunting but already gone. The storm outside raged on, but Emily sat still, drowning in the quiet that followed betrayal. The storm of betrayal faded into memory as Emily's mind drifted back to the past, when life was simpler and laughter was easy. She remembered sitting on the playground swing beside Sarah, their feet kicking at the dust as the sun dipped low. Emily said, "We'll always have each other, right?" And Sarah replied with a grin, "Forever." Their hands linked like a promise carved into the wind. The air had smelled of summer grass, and their giggles had drowned out every worry. Even then, Sarah's smile had been radiant, unbreakable, in Emily's eyes. That memory was a jewel, polished by time, gleaming with innocence. The warmth of that day pressed against Emily's heart, reminding her how much love had once been stitched between them, and how cruel it was that the threads had now unraveled. Emily remembered birthday candles glowing bright, Sarah's voice louder than the crowd as she sang. The cake had been messy with icing, laughter spilling across the room like music. Sarah leaned close and whispered, "Make a wish for both of us." Emily closed her eyes, heart swelling with the warmth of their bond. When she blew the candles out, Sarah clapped the loudest, her joy louder than the sparklers. That night they had sworn, "Nothing will break us," words etched into the rhythm of the party. It was a moment too pure, too alive to ever feel fragile. Yet now, remembering it, Emily realized how delicate those words truly were. The sweetness of that memory cut sharper because she now understood how easily it had all been broken. There had been nights when secrets were treasures, whispered under blankets with flashlights. Emily said, "I'm scared of losing people." And Sarah whispered back, "Not me, never me." Their words were sacred vows exchanged in shadows. The flashlight beam painted their faces in golden halves, and the hum of cicadas outside wrapped the night in comfort. Emily had believed every syllable, storing it like armor in her heart. Their closeness had felt unshakable, like walls built from laughter and shared tears. Even in silence, Sarah's presence was steady, a reminder of safety. Now, as Emily remembered that fragile vow, it twisted like a blade, cutting deeper with the irony of its brokenness. The memory was warm, but it burned against the truth she now carried. Emily recalled the first heartbreak she suffered, tears streaming down her cheeks on the school steps. Sarah had wrapped an arm around her shoulders, saying, "Anyone who hurts you is a fool." Emily leaned into that comfort, feeling the safety of her friend's embrace. Sarah's warmth had been stronger than words, her laughter cutting through Emily's sorrow like sunlight breaking clouds. That bond had been proof that friendship could heal wounds faster than time itself. Emily's trust had been sealed again in that moment, deeper than any promise they'd made before. But remembering it now, Emily saw the cruel twist of fate, that the same arms that once held her up had later torn her down with betrayal. The sweetness of that memory now stung like salt on an open wound. They had stood at graduation, robes billowing in the summer breeze, fingers clasped tightly as if refusing to let go of the bond they'd built. Sarah laughed and shouted, "We're unstoppable!" And Emily echoed, "Forever sisters!" The crowd roared with cheers and claps, but to them the moment felt private, sealed in the clasp of their hands. Emily had looked at Sarah's face and seen only pride, only loyalty. Their futures had seemed intertwined, two paths carved side by side. Yet in the cruel light of the present, Emily realized that moment was not eternal. It was fleeting, fragile, already breaking beneath Sarah's hidden resentment. What once had been a triumph now replayed like a cruel irony, its joy shattered by betrayal. The memory was both blessing and curse, the last chapter before everything collapsed. The first fracture came quietly, almost invisible, when Emily waited at the cafe, her coffee growing cold as minutes stretched into hours. She kept glancing at the door, each sound of footsteps raising her hopes only to crush them again. The cafe buzzed with laughter and chatter, but it all felt muffled, like she was trapped underwater. She whispered, "You promised," as her fingers traced circles in the coffee foam. An hour later, Sarah's message blinked on her phone. "Sorry, something came up." Emily tried to smile, but her lips trembled, the excuse cutting sharper than silence. She stared at old photos on her screen, Sarah's arm wrapped around her, smiles that once felt eternal. Maybe she's busy, Emily told herself, but the seed of doubt had been planted, and its roots would only grow deeper. It was on the campus lawn that Emily first felt the sting of invisibility. Sarah sat with new friends, laughter rippling through their small circle, her blonde hair catching the sunlight. Emily lifted a hand in greeting, but Sarah's glance barely brushed her before turning back. Emily whispered. She didn't even smile, her throat tight as she clutched her books closer. Once, Sarah's laughter had been reserved for her, their private joy echoing late into nights. Now it felt stolen, shared freely with strangers. Emily lingered on the edge of the crowd, trying to convince herself it was nothing, but the distance was undeniable. "What changed?" she muttered, her voice lost in the breeze. Each laugh from Sarah's lips felt like a reminder that Emily's place in her world was vanishing. Nights once filled with endless calls turned into hollow silence. Emily pressed Sarah's name again and again, her thumb aching from repetition. The ringtone echoed in the dorm, mocking her hope with every unanswered ring. She whispered, "Just pick up," voice trembling with desperation. Hours later, the screen buzzed with one cold word. Busy. That word was heavier than any silence. As if Sarah had locked a door Emily could no longer open. Emily dropped the phone onto her lap, leaning her head back against the wall. She thought of nights when Sarah whispered stories until dawn, when even silence had been safe. Now silence was sharp, cutting through the room like a blade. "I guess I'm not worth staying up for anymore," she said bitterly, her chest hollow. The whispers found her before Sarah did. Emily walked past two classmates in the hallway, their laughter sharp as glass. "Sarah," said Emily is too clingy. One giggled, and the words cut straight through her. Emily froze mid-step, books pressing into her chest like a shield. Her pulse roared in her ears, drowning out the chatter. When Sarah appeared moments later, her smile looked easy, casual, as though nothing had been said. Emily forced her lips into a smile, but it felt broken, her stomach twisting with unease. Why would she say that? She muttered under her breath, eyes stinging. The trust that once wrapped her like armor now felt like paper, tearing under the weight of doubt. For the first time, Emily wondered if Sarah's warmth was a mask she had never seen through. The library once echoed with their whispers, but now it was suffocatingly silent. Emily sat across from Sarah, her open book unread, words blurring on the page. Sarah's head bent low, her fingers flying across her phone screen, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Emily's chest tightened as she whispered, "Do you even see me anymore?" But Sarah's laugh at the unseen message drowned her out. Emily's throat burned as she remembered nights when Sarah whispered secrets in this very place, their laughter hushed but alive. Now that closeness had been stolen by someone on the other side of the glowing screen. The overhead lights hummed with cold indifference, and Emily felt like a ghost sitting across from the girl who once called her sister. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was final. The suspicion became undeniable when Emily borrowed Sarah's notebook after class, pages slipping free to reveal a folded printout. Her chest tightened as she unfolded it to see her own face, a photo captured in secret, circled in red ink with mocking words scribbled beside it. Emily whispered, "She laughed at me." With them. Her stomach churned as she remembered the giggles in the hallway, now realizing they weren't rumors, but truths crafted by Sarah herself. The paper trembled in her hands, a relic of trust that had been twisted into ridicule. Emily's breath grew shallow, her mind reeling with fragments of loyalty that no longer held. She looked around the empty room, but the walls seemed to close in, suffocating her with betrayal that could no longer be denied. Emily tried to confront Sarah later, but Sarah brushed her off with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "You're imagining things," Sarah said, slipping her phone into her pocket. But when Emily glanced over, she saw her name flash on the screen in a group chat she wasn't part of. A sharp sting rippled through her chest, her voice breaking as she whispered, "You're talking about me there, aren't you?" Sarah smiled faintly, almost pitying, before walking away without answering. Emily's knees weakened as her world tilted, the silence more cutting than denial. The hallway buzzed with students, but Emily felt stranded, alone in a tide of faces that blurred around her. Every step Sarah took away from her was another confirmation that their bond had already been traded for cruelty. The truth struck fully when Emily sat beside a mutual friend, Lily, who finally whispered what she had feared. "Emily, Sarah shows your messages to others. She mocks them." The words landed heavier than stone, tearing through the fragile denial Emily had clung to. Her throat closed as tears burned her eyes, but Lily's gaze was steady, sympathetic, unwilling to hide what she knew. Emily whispered, "She was supposed to protect me," the phrase tasting bitter, sour with betrayal. Her heart raced, every memory of laughter now twisted into evidence of deceit. For years, Sarah had been her anchor, but now she realized Sarah was the storm that had been drowning her all along. The betrayal was not silent anymore. It was laid bare, cruel in its simplicity. And Emily's world cracked open with the weight of it. Emily scrolled through Sarah's public photos later, each image once a treasure, but now venomous. There was Sarah, smiling beside the new friends, captions mocking inside jokes Emily never shared. Her chest constricted as she found a photo captioned, "Some people never grow up." She knew it was about her. The comments were full of laughter, strangers complicit in a betrayal she had never expected. Emily whispered, "She turned me into a joke," the words nearly choking her. Her fingers shook as she tried to set the phone down, but her eyes clung to the image like staring at a wound she couldn't close. Each smile Sarah gave the camera now felt like a knife twisting deeper, every pixel carrying the weight of broken promises that could never be mended. The knife cut deepest when Emily finally overheard Sarah's voice directly. Hidden near the stairwell, she heard Sarah laughing with another friend. "Emily's too naive, she believes everything. It's pathetic." Emily froze, every muscle in her body locking as the words seared into her skin. Her heart hammered so loudly she feared it would give her away, but Sarah's laughter drowned it out. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered to herself, "She hates me." The truth was no longer a rumor, no longer a suspicion. It was Sarah's own voice turning love into venom. Emily staggered back, pressing a hand to her chest, as if to hold together what had already shattered. The world felt colder, the walls heavier, her trust destroyed beyond repair. The betrayal was now absolute. Emily cornered Sarah outside the library, the evening air thick with silence. Her hands trembled, clutching her phone as proof. "You betrayed me," Emily said, her voice cracking. Sarah scoffed, "Don't be dramatic." The dismissal ignited fire in Emily's chest. She shoved the phone forward, Sarah's cruel words glowing on the screen. "These are your words," Emily cried, her throat raw. Students passed by, their footsteps quickening, sensing the storm brewing. Sarah's eyes narrowed, lips curling into something sharper than denial. "You were always too much," she spat. Emily's knees nearly buckled, but anger held her upright. The friendship, once sacred, burned to ash in the space between them. Emily's voice broke into shards as she shouted, "I gave you everything." Her words echoed off the brick walls, raw enough to stop passers-by. Sarah's lips tightened, but she refused to look away. "You smothered me," she snapped, her tone dripping with venom. Emily staggered back as if struck, tears welling like rain behind her eyes. Memories of every promise, every laugh, every whispered vow ripped through her chest like blades. She said, "We were supposed to be sisters," her voice trembling. Sarah rolled her eyes and muttered, "That was your fantasy, not mine." The cruelty in her words was louder than the wind whipping between them. Emily's chest heaved, her body shaking with rage and sorrow that collided like thunder. The crowd grew, silent observers to a war of words that once was love. Emily's fists clenched, her voice trembling but fierce. "You made me your joke." Sarah smirked, eyes glittering with something cold. "I just told the truth. Everyone else sees it too." The words sliced through Emily like knives, tearing at scars still bleeding. She lunged closer, face inches away, her whisper more dangerous than any scream. "You destroyed me." Sarah's laugh was sharp, echoing like broken glass. "You destroyed yourself." Gasps rippled through the onlookers, but neither girl cared. Emily's hands trembled at her sides, caught between striking and collapsing. The friendship's death had become public, exposed under unforgiving twilight. Emily's voice dropped to a whisper, the kind that carried louder than a scream. "I loved you more than anyone, and you spit it back at me." Her tears glistened in the fading light, her body shaking. Sarah looked away, the mask cracking for just a second, guilt flickering before vanishing. "You were a weight I had to drop," she muttered, the words poison disguised as truth. Emily gasped as if the wind had been punched from her lungs. The silence between them was unbearable, stretching like a chasm. Every memory they had built together collapsed into ashes in that moment. Emily whispered, "Then this is where we end." The storm of years together fell quiet, leaving only ruin. The breaking point came with no scream, no strike, only silence. Emily's tears streamed freely, her voice steady now as she said, "You killed us with a smile." Sarah's jaw tightened, but no words followed. The onlookers shifted uncomfortably, the weight of grief and fury pressing down on them all. Emily stepped back, shoulders heavy but gaze unflinching, her chest rising with ragged breaths. Sarah turned away, her back a final wall closing between them. The storm that had raged for years finally collapsed into its wreckage. Emily's body shook, but she stood firm, knowing the friendship was gone forever. The night swallowed their bond whole, leaving only echoes of what once was. Emily sat alone on her bed, the night air heavy with silence. Her phone lay dark beside her, no messages, no calls, nothing but absence where love once lived. She whispered, "I don't even recognize myself anymore." Tears slid unchecked down her cheeks, but they felt different now. Less of grief, more of exhaustion. She replayed Sarah's words, each one a nail sealing the coffin of their bond. The storm outside had passed, but inside her chest the ruins smoldered. Emily pressed her hands over her face, her breath shaky, whispering, "How do you heal from this?" The room offered no answer, only shadows stretching long across the walls. Yet in the hollow silence, she felt the first flicker of resolve, faint but alive, like a spark refusing to die. The next day, Emily walked across campus, her steps heavy but steady. Whispers trailed behind her, echoes of gossip fueled by Sarah's betrayal. She held her head higher than she felt, though her chest burned with humiliation. She thought, "They don't see me, only her story of me." Passing by the lawn, she saw Sarah laughing again, untouched by regret, her new circle shining like armor. Emily stopped for a moment, her gaze piercing through the distance. The pain stabbed sharp, but she didn't look away. "She can't erase me," Emily whispered, her voice firm though quiet. She turned, forcing her feet forward, every step carrying the weight of brokenness, but also the hint of defiance. The wound was open, but she was still moving. Later that evening, Emily sat in the cafe, her fingers wrapped around a cooling cup of tea. Lily slid into the seat across from her, eyes soft with empathy. "You didn't deserve this," Lily said quietly. Emily's throat tightened as she whispered, "Then why does it feel like maybe I did?" The cafe hummed with warmth, but Emily felt cold inside, stripped of the innocence she once carried. Lily reached across the table, resting her hand gently over Emily's. "Because you loved honestly," she said. Emily stared at her trembling reflection in the dark tea, realizing that betrayal said more about Sarah's heart than hers. The truth weighed heavy, but it also freed her. She was not broken, only wounded. And wounds, though painful, could heal. At night, Emily walked along the empty street, the streetlights buzzing faintly above her. Each step echoed in the stillness, her breath visible in the cool air. She whispered, "I feel empty, but not gone." The betrayal had hollowed her, but inside that hollow space, she sensed the outline of something stronger forming. Every cruel word replayed like thunder in her mind, but she no longer flinched. She realized survival wasn't about forgetting. It was about carrying the scars as proof of endurance. "She didn't end me," Emily said firmly into the night, her voice steadier than she expected. The wind brushed past, cold but invigorating, as if the world itself agreed. The storm had passed, leaving a bruised sky, but she was still standing beneath it. Emily returned to her room and stood before the mirror, her reflection blurred by tears. She whispered, "You're still here," as if reassuring herself. The girl staring back was not the same. Her eyes carried shadows, but also fire. Betrayal had stripped her of illusions, yet it had also revealed her strength. "She took my trust, but she won't take me," Emily said, her voice steady now. She touched the glass as if reaching for the person she was becoming, someone scarred but stronger. The silence no longer felt empty, it felt like space to rebuild. The friendship was dead, buried in betrayal, but Emily's spirit, though battered, refused to die with it. In the stillness of the room, she chose herself for the first time. The days blurred into one another, but the wound stayed sharp. Emily walked through the park they once claimed as theirs, the benches and trees heavy with echoes of laughter, now gone. She touched the old carving in the wood, their initials inside a crooked heart. Her throat closed as she whispered, "We meant it then." The memories didn't fade, but they burned, mocking her faith in something Sarah had thrown away. Children's laughter rang in the distance, reminding her of innocence that could never return. Emily closed her eyes, inhaling the cold air, tasting the bitterness of love, soured by betrayal. The world kept moving, but she carried her ruin silently, her shadow longer than her frame. The bond was gone, but the ghost of it clung like smoke. Emily sat by her window one night, the city alive beyond the glass, her reflection caught between light and shadow. She whispered, "She lives free, and I live broken." The truth twisted, but it also cleared her vision. Sarah's betrayal was not her weakness, it was Sarah's choice, Sarah's cruelty. Yet knowing that didn't erase the scar it left behind. The city lights flickered like a heartbeat outside, but Emily's chest still ached, hollow and heavy. She pressed her forehead against the glass, whispering, "I'll survive this," though her voice carried both defiance and despair. Survival didn't feel like victory. It felt like dragging pieces of herself forward, bleeding but moving still. And that was enough for now. In the quiet of her room, Emily pulled out an old photo of them together, taken years before. They were laughing, arms linked, eyes shining with promises they believed would never break. Emily traced Sarah's face with her fingertip, whispering, "Who were you then?" The smile staring back was a stranger's now, a mask she could no longer trust. Emily tore the photo in half with trembling hands, her chest clenching as if tearing flesh. She pressed her palm against her heart, whispering, "I remember, but I won't keep you." It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't healing. It was surrender to the truth, to the loss, to the scar that could not be erased. The silent observer finally spoke, Lily's words striking Emily harder than silence ever had. "You lost her, but you didn't lose yourself." Emily blinked, stunned by the weight of that truth. She whispered, "Then why do I feel hollow?" Lily held her gaze, calm but firm. "Because scars don't form overnight, but one day you'll touch it and feel strength, not pain." Emily inhaled sharply, realizing the truth was not in erasing Sarah but in outlasting her. She nodded faintly, her lips trembling but steady enough to say, "Then I'll carry it until I can." The words didn't erase the ache, but they gave it meaning. Betrayal had stolen her joy, but not her future. On her final night of reflection, Emily stood alone at the rooftop, the city sprawling below like a sea of fireflies. The wind whipped her hair, but she stood steady. She whispered, "I lost my best friend the day I found out who she really was." Her voice cracked, but the words were solid, carved in stone. She pressed a hand against her chest, not to hold the pain, but to claim what was left. The betrayal was her scar, permanent and unyielding, but also proof that she had survived. As the city lights shimmered, Emily closed her eyes, letting the truth settle in her bones. It was not peace, but it was finality. And finality was enough to step into tomorrow.